Hi, Dr. Schmoe here from the Functional Neurology Center. Thank you to everyone who's joining us for the FNC Brain Health and Concussion Summit. And what we're going to talk about right now is the FNC and our work with cerebrospinal fluid flow, CSF flow, and what that means for patients that are dealing with, brain fog, dizziness, post-concussion, and those type of symptoms. So when people think about brain injury, they picture neurons and synapses, but beneath those networks lies a river of life-sustaining fluid, which is your cerebrospinal fluid, your CSF. It cushions the brain, it delivers nutrients, removes metabolic waste, and regulates intracranial pressure. It's constantly circulating the ventricular system, the spinal canal, and perivascular spaces in the brain, and for decades clinicians have focused primarily on the neurons and the blood vessels, but research is now showing that disrupted CSF flow is a major factor in brain injury and post-concussion symptoms. When things go wrong, such as concussion and whiplash, it doesn't just shake the brain, but it can mechanically alter the lymphatic vessels and the way that the CSF and the CSF flow dynamics work. So changes in the neck and venous outflow, whiplash, and cervical dysfunction can actually alter the compliance of the dural sleeves and also changes the way that the brain and jugular venous drainage occurs, slowing down CSF flow and turnover. So you can have microvascular injury, so disruption of the lymphatic system. It actually impairs waste clearance from the brain, leading to neuroinflammation and oxidative stress. So a lot of times people have heard that your brain basically drains while you sleep with cerebrospinal fluid, and that's an important function of sleep. And with concussion and head injuries, obviously there's changes in sleep patterns. And autonomic dysfunction occurs as well. So a dysregulated sympathetic system that can alter intracranial compliance and may contribute to headaches, pressure in the head, and poor exercise tolerance. Postural effects, so from whiplashes and injuries, poor spinal mobility, altered respiratory mechanisms, that can reduce the natural CSF flow pump and mechanisms that are driven by spinal motion, diaphragmatic breathing, and cardiovascular pulsation. In 2012, colleagues described the lymphatic system. It's a glia-dependent waste clearance pathway where CSF flows through perivascular channels to remove metabolites like beta amyloid, tau, and lactic acid in the brain. So basically you get buildup of toxic material and it has to get cleared out. And that happens during sleep. The lymphatic clearance is most active, but in concussion and TBI, obviously sleep, like I said before, is disrupted, it's dysregulated. And CSF flow becomes irregular and your lymphatic system becomes impaired. This creates a cycle where the metabolic waste, it builds up, contributing to neuroinflammation, brain fog, and that's going to delay healing. So optimizing CSF flow is not just about comfort, it's about restoring the brain's ability to detoxify and repair itself. We use a device at our clinic called the FLIR chair by a company called Ciatrix. And it's a chair, it's super innovative, it's designed to stimulate spinal motion, the respiratory-driven pressure changes, and craniospinal compliance to enhance CSF circulation. So patients, they sit in a supportive motorized chair that moves the body through rhythmic tilting and oscillations of the head and of the lumbar spine, so thoracolumbar junction. Through spinal flexion and extension, that enhances the CSF pumping along the spinal canal. And you have head and cervical oscillations. That's going to mobilize dural structures in the neck and promote fluid exchange at the craniocervical junction. And those postural transitions, those stimulate venous outflow and autonomic recalibration. So this rhythmic input, it's also rhythmic vestibular input. And when you're doing things passively, that will actually activate different regions of the cerebellum differently. And it's the combination of that cerebellar input with the changes that are happening in the CSF flow that I believe activates a pumping hydraulic balance, and that will actually change and get lymphatic debris out of the brain. So a very, very cool technology that we're utilizing. Here's some research if you wanted to take a look. And here is one of our patients. We'll play this video. Second day of intensive. You woke up after doing the C-chair.
Yeah.
What differences did you feel? Taking into account that you've had post-concussion symptoms for 7 years.
Yeah. I saw everything was more clear. I thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, colors were brighter. Everything was clearer. I felt like my eyes were looking at the same thing, not two different things. And I really hadn't done much the day before.
We didn't really do much other therapies. We're just doing the exam, the diagnostics, and the testing. Second day of intensive. We did this.
You
woke up after doing the C-chair.
It was life-changing.
Yeah.
To me, this
what
felt like,
differences did you feel?
oh my gosh,
taking into account that you've had post-concussion symptoms for
7
years. Thank you. Thank you, Don. Huge changes that we're seeing clinically in our patients, and hopefully we're going to be able to do the research and do pre and post assessments looking at changes in objective biomarkers of balance and eye movement function and things that would change when you're improving overall brain function and getting that debris out of the brain. So if you want more information, feel free to reach out to us at thefnc.com. We do complimentary consultations. We can meet with you and decide if the symptoms that you have make sense for working with somebody who's trained in functional neurology and chiropractic, integrating that together with a variety of other therapies. So, we also use low-level light therapy. We do ARP wave. We do transcranial. We do PEMF. We do transcranial direct current stimulation. We do vision training, vestibular training, cognitive training. So we're really trying to work on all of the different systems that get off with these injuries and put all the pieces together for people so you don't have to work with 10 different people. You can work with a small team of people that are working on each system, and that's what I think makes the changes with functional neurology.